A lot of us, maybe you that's listening to this right now, can find yourself feeling trapped inside of a career prison and just asking yourself, how do you break out? Or maybe you're an ambitious vet that's listening to this looking to simply discover your value in the marketplace. So, in turn, you know your value proposition for employers, clients, or even potentially buying and growing your own franchise business. Well, this guest today has created a proven equation on how he can package your value proposition by building 5 key elements of realizing more value in yourself and inside the marketplace. Stay tuned.
Equate to your realized value. So the way I set it up is you have a value. It could be huge, it could be small, but you have a value. That is your potential value. How much of that do you actually get? How much of that do you realize? And that's your take home, basically. And for this, I'm not talking about investments. Investments a whole nother thing. What I'm talking about is you developing your life in a way that makes you increasingly valuable in the marketplace.
What's going on, ambitious vet? Believe it or not, as I said in the previous episode, I am a Marine Corps crane eater that was honorably discharged back in 2012. That is an Amazon best-selling author of an ebook called 10 Steps to Predict Success Out of the Uniform, which Lane Balone and also Stephen Kuhn has been able to help me out with, just creating a flow that was magical and breaking down a step-by-step guide to creating an impactful and sustainably fulfilling life out of the uniform. After every step that I share inside of that ebook, I share personal stories from the beginning of my transition back in 2012 of living on a wrestling mat and only owning a school desk to my name in an apartment that I could not afford in San Diego, California, to now coaching leadership programs for a legendary personal and professional development company, climbing up a corporate ladder as a sales trainer for one of the largest internet marketing companies for real estate agents, and influencing thousands now through this podcast, coaching, speaking, and programs for ambitious vets that are growth-minded, looking for the next level of success in their life. Bottom line is, this is my no bullshit field guide to creating tangible and fulfilling success out of the uniform as an ambitious vet. Starting from scratch, my 10 life lessons. Why am I bringing this up? You're probably going to go to Amazon and be like, hey, you published this back in 2018. Yes, I did. There was a recent ambitious vet that listened to this podcast episode, was like, why is this not in physical copy? Why is there not more PR, marketing around this? And that's why I'm promoting this, because it is making a real impact. So if you haven't already, I'll put the link in the show notes below for you to click the link, go get your copy for $10, or I'll put my personal email in the show notes below. And if you email me, Ambitious Vet, put I want the ebook in the subject line, I'll follow up with a free ebook copy of this book. It's really making an impact, and you deserve a no bullshit guide of how to accelerate where you are to where you want to go out of the uniform. Welcome to the Ambitious Vet Podcast. My name is Chris Hoffman. I'm a Marine Corps combat veteran turned social entrepreneur. Here I dive into the trenches with today's most ambitious, goal-oriented, growth-minded military veterans on the planet to empower you with the golden grenades needed to break through new levels of satisfaction, fulfillment, and success after you've realized stability. Now, I must give you a quick disclaimer, ambitious vet. We do say the we do say the you knows, so don't expect perfection. Just like life, just like when you were serving, right? Life isn't perfect. You deserve authenticity, so make sure that you're looking and listening for the gold. I promise you, you'll find it. Now let's dive in.
It's time to get into the trenches, dig into your purpose, and fire up your life's fulfillment. The Ambitious Vet Podcast starts now.
What's going on, Ambitious Vet? We're right back inside the trenches today with Joel Stewart. Joel is a United States Navy veteran, founder of the International Franchise Marketplace, CEO of the Veteran Franchise Initiative, the IFPG Certified Franchise Consultant, Certified Franchise Navigator. He's an engineer, has an MBA, international speaker, and author of the Value Equation series that has been presented all over the world, Ambitious Vet. I'm excited to dive into all this and much more. Joel, are you there, brother?
I am here.
Welcome to the show, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Of course, brother. Of course, man. You're just doing some really incredible work. As I was saying, before we actually hit record here, I never even knew, man, because I see a lot of your content on social media. You're always doing like some great Facebook Lives, providing some great thought leadership. But I did not know that you are driving a global economy and helping, aspiring entrepreneurs and other like somewhat third world countries, man, driving the global economy, man. That's what an Ambitious Vet does. So just thank you first and foremost for all the good shit you're doing.
Yeah, well, it hasn't been easy. I'll tell you that.
Yeah,
but it's definitely been a ride.
Yeah, I bet. But you're doing some good work. So go ahead and tell us more about you, your background, and your transition story leading up to today.
My transition story is actually it's quite a story. But if I try to sum it up, I got horribly sick, got medically discharged, was disabled for years, and then clawed myself out of it. And I guess that's the the short version. But no, I one day I was really sick. And I actually just finished recapping this for a video I was making for the upcoming Vet Social Summit. A presentation I'm doing there called Defeating Disability, the Power of Faith, Focus, and Future. But to try to recap it a little bit here, I was working out one day, getting ready for the next physical readiness test, and I couldn't finish my workout, and it really perplexed me. And then the next week I could do even less, and I could do even less, and I could do even less. Fast forward five months later of this progressional decline, I couldn't sit up in a chair. I couldn't drive. My arms would fatigue on the steering wheel. I couldn't really even chew a sandwich sometimes. My jaw would fatigue while chewing. They sent me to Bethesda, really dark time there. The tests they did on me were quite painful. Trying to figure out if it was like nerve damage or this or that. That was the hardest part. I mean, that's where I had to deal with the suicidal ideations, which are really scary, man. Suicidal ideations, like, you don't want them to come; they just come, and they're like, hey, what's the least traumatizing way to your family that you could kill yourself? And then you start brainstorming all these ideas, and you're like, wait, what am I even talking about? Where did that come from?
Yeah,
it was really, really rough time. And then I spent several years where I couldn't even get out of a chair, really. So yeah, my transition story is I got medically retired, and I sat there waiting for medical conditions to improve for a long time. And once I started going to a chiropractor like 3 times a week, and that somehow made it a little bit better. I could sit up in a chair for an hour. And I know for a lot of people, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but for me, that was huge. I was like, an hour, what can I do with this? So I went back to school, and I went back for my MBA. And this is where I started having a huge mindset shift. I started realizing that I'd wasted all those years where I felt like I can't even sit up in a chair. I lay in a recliner all day or my bed. And now it's just like, man, what a waste. Because what I realized is the biggest thing, or one of the biggest things with overcoming disability like that, is that you have to focus on what you can do and not on what you can't. There are so many things you used to be able to do, and those are gone. It's just not coming back. So if you can't do all those things, focusing on them just brings you down into depression. There are things you can do. Everyone can do something. And that's what you need to focus on. And that's what I started focusing on. And me being able to sit up in a chair for that hour is what gave me the strength, or what kind of shifted my focus towards that. Because when I go to my MBA classes, it was like a 45-minute drive there. It was a 3-hour class, 45-minute drive back. I was like laying down in my car practically. Like I could put my arm out the back window. And I couldn't sit through the whole class, and I couldn't even make it to the break. So they put a break at 1.5 hours, which is more than an hour. So I'd be like laying down in the back of the classroom or out in the hallway. But that was something that I knew I could do. I couldn't sit there for 1.5 hours, but I could sit there for an hour, lay down for 10 minutes, and then finish the class. So that's what I did. And, I did really well. And that kind of gave me a whole mindset shift. And once I realized that my life is what I make of it, it's not what's been thrust on me or what I can't do. But if I do what I can do and just focus on that, I'm still going to be able to do stuff. And that's what really created this whole second life, I guess I could call it, where, it's all about focusing on opportunity, and when there is an opportunity, you take it. And not comparing yourself to other people. There's lots of people even now that can do so many things I can't do. I still have lots of issues, but now by focusing on what I can do, I can do lots of things that other people can't, because I focused on what I focused on, and now I'm better at it than other people, because that's the way that it works, right? So you focus on what you can do, and you can overcome a lot. So that's my transition story, 10 different ways, I guess. Transition plus 5 years, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. Yeah, I mean, what I hear in that is just like fixed mindset versus like growth mindset, right? And I think a lot of veterans that get out, I know I was included with 6 months of cognitive behavioral therapy provided by our glorious Veteran Affairs, and got diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder and a few other disabilities. But I could have easily sat inside of that fixed way of thinking that I am a certain way, or I could kind of think my way out of the box. And it sounds like you've done a great job of doing that, man. Now, are you actively walking around now? And how do you overcome that health barrier, man? Because that's definitely a landmine of doing what you're doing, which is going and traveling internationally and speaking. How do you overcome that?
It's kind of weird. And honestly, when I say it, you're going to be like, what? But let me just set the stage for what was happening to me. So I had incredible joint pain, inflammation throughout my body, incredible fatigue. Like I said, I couldn't even walk. I had to get a mechanized wheelchair to go out and do stuff. It was bad. I had POTS, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. Basically, whenever I would stand up, within a minute, my heart rate would jump to 160. So they had to put me on all kinds of beta blockers and heart rate modifying drugs to try to keep that in check. And then like I would have these hot flashes. Like I felt like I was a woman in menopause. I'd be like, I'd be cold, and then suddenly like my whole body would be drenched in sweat. Wow. So basically my central nervous system, as it turns out, was a wreck. And there was something that my chiropractor recommended, that I've had doctors literally laugh to my face. Like after I've gone through this, and after their recommendation worked, and for the most part has brought me back to being normal, I've actually still had doctors laugh in my face. But what my chiropractor said was, this sounds a lot like leaky gut syndrome, or I've heard it also described in a documentary as non-celiac gluten sensitivity. But leaky gut works better because there were more than just gluten that I was reacting to. And the theory of it is that your gut lining gets compromised and your food proteins are slipping into your bloodstream. Your body recognizes the food proteins as bacterial, because bacteria also has a protein signature. And once your immune system gets keyed to certain foods, it launches this like life or death immune response. And so you end up with your whole body in this ridiculous immune response that ends up with a whole bunch of just random, crazy, destructive symptoms. So that's the theory. All I know is I eliminated all kinds of stuff and just did strict like meat and green vegetables. And within 2 weeks, like the POTS was going away, the muscle pain, the weakness, the fatigue, it was almost like a miracle. Yeah. So it's one of those things. They say food be thy medicine or whatever. But I can't believe that no doctor that I went to for years. I spent 3 months at Bethesda seeing doctors. I mean, they did these like all these different nerve tests that were incredibly painful. And no one suggested like, oh, this could be some kind of immune reaction or food issue or something like that. It boggles my mind.
Yeah, no, man. I mean, it's kind of different than the other medical discharge transition stories that we've heard in previous episodes. A lot of them were physical, right? Mm-hmm. Like missing body parts, stuff like that, right? Versus like biochemistry or things of that matter. That's a little bit different because that's one of those unseen scars that you got to kind of deal with and carry along the process as well, right?
Yeah, my other theory is I screwed up my shoulder. I had 2 different shoulder surgeries, and it could have, like, trying to figure out what messed up my gut to begin with. It could have been antibiotics from those surgeries. I don't know. But yeah, nothing compared to like missing limbs. I am, thank God I have all mine. But yeah, but the disability and the struggle that you go through, the shattering of the male ego, all the things that you had your self-worth wrapped in, stripped away, and all of that is going to be very similar, I think. And trying to find a new way to find self-worth now that all that is gone. It's a real struggle mentally.
Yeah. No, I can definitely see how that could happen. Now, the key question here is how do you build yourself out of that? Because obviously now you're a very self-aware, very just intelligent guy, man, both in business, even knowing your body now. It just takes a lot of, self-analyzing, I guess is the best word I could think about around where you're at. How did you kind of work yourself through that, build your self-worth and confidence? Because I think there may be an ambitious vet that's listening to this right now, brother, that's just like, you know what? I'm dealing with some mental, emotional, physical landmines, and I don't know how to overcome these. So how do you build your self-worth? And then we can dive into this awesome value equation.
Yeah. Well, so the self-worth part, a lot of that is actually rooted in my faith. So I'm a Christian. And one of the things, when all the things that I put my value in were gone, I kept reminding myself that I still have value. I have God's value that he places in me. So that was something I was able to cling to, even when I didn't feel like there was any value left. And the other thing is also through my faith is just believing that all the difficulties I was going through mattered. Like I knew I couldn't see how good could come out of it, but I had this belief in this purpose that it mattered and that none of it was going to go, to waste. And that was important to me. But as far as career-wise digging out, so I went back to school. I got my MBA, and my mom has a real estate brokerage. So I thought the logical thing would be to get an MBA with a real estate concentration and start doing commercial real estate. So that's what I did. And I really, really didn't like it. But it was the logical next step. So I would say, like, if you're at that point, just look for the logical next step. It may not be the one that you want, but you need to get your life moving. If your life is stuck, if it's stagnant, it's definitely not going anywhere. You get it moving and then you can direct it. And that's what I did. Is I had a career and my career got stripped from me, and now I'm at this point where, like, even today, I don't think I'd be able to hold down a 9-to-5. Like, I still have a lot of fatigue issues. I have a lot of back issues that came out of laying in a chair or recliner for years. So I still couldn't hold down a 9-to-5. But I found something that I could do, and I just got that boat moving. So the MBA was the easy one. There was a housing allowance to help with finances and all of that. So going back to school was an easy way to start it. And then after that, I started doing commercial real estate. My first listing had a business potentially for sale with the building. So then I started looking in, what do you do to sell a business? And I discovered that there's this whole world out there called business brokerage, which is all about listing, marketing, buying, selling businesses. And so I started working towards becoming a CCIM, a certified commercial investment member, and also a certified business intermediary, which is a designation from the International Business Brokers Association. So and that was all stuff I could do. I could take the courses online, most of them, or a lot of them. I could take online courses to learn it, and then the big thing I did for that, which was probably the most physically demanding thing that I'd done since I got better, is I went down to the International Business Brokers Association National Conference in Dallas. I think this was 2016.
Nice. Okay.
And that was very physically challenging for me. But again, I knew if you can do anything for a short amount of time. So I knew that with the fatigue and stuff, it would catch up to me, but I forced myself through it. That's where I discovered franchising, is I went down there, and the event was sponsored by IFPG, the International Franchise Professionals Group. And they brought in franchisors that like ringed the stadium. And and so like in the breaks and stuff, I could go and chat with this franchise and that franchise. And from a business broker perspective, from someone who was looking at potentially starting a business and trying to connect people with a business to buy, these look like business in a box ideas. And instead of trying to fight for to try to get these listings, here's, you know, potentially hundreds of ready-made business listings that I could try to market and sell. So that's what I was thinking. It turned out to be a much different career path than I initially thought, but I did that. I got interested. I joined the IFPG, and once I went to their first international conference, or their first conference down in Florida, that's when I realized that franchise consulting was something I was actually passionate about. And I actually made a term about what I went through. I call it career prison. Career prison is when you're doing what you're doing because it's built naturally from what you've always done. So each career step builds to the next career step, builds to the next career step. But what if you don't like the career? What if you realize you made a huge mistake?
Yeah. Or the industry, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's kind of where I was. I got my MBA, went into commercial real estate, went into business brokerage, and I didn't like any of it, you know, because every client I landed, I felt like I was never doing enough for them. And I felt like I was failing them in some way. Like there was always something else I could do to market their business or market their real estate. And you know, it was just, it never made me happy. I always felt, you know, that no matter how hard I tried, there's always more I could do. And I hated that feeling. So I realized this, so career prison, and I even define it a little more and say career prison is when you are stuck with your past defining your future. And it professionally. And that's one of the things that made me super passionate about franchising, is that franchising is there's lots of ways to escape career prison. Franchising is just a really great one. Because you can take all of those soft skills that you've built through the military, through your other businesses, and you can apply them to a business that you actually want to run. You can actually pick a business with a role that you want to play, you know, whether you're out there recruiting clients or whether you're working with customers or doing sales, whatever it is that you want to do that you're good at. You can pick a franchise where that's going to be your role and you hire to fill the other ones you don't want to do. And you can pick a business that you actually want to be in, something that you're passionate about or something that you like, or just something that you think has abnormal profitability in your specific market. So yeah, career prison is why I am very passionate about franchising, because I realized I could help people that were kind of in my situation escape and do something else with their lives. Most people don't like their jobs, as it turns out.
True. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But we get trapped because we like certainty and stability sometimes, right? And from what I've been able to realize through the veteran community is a lot of us are just getting out and we want to provide for our families. You know, a lot of that inferiority complex, to your point, man, that are getting out feeling like they owe their family something, which rightfully so, of like, hey, I just got to provide for my family, give them the time, allow my wife, allow my husband to, you know, have the space to grow their career now in a stable place, right? So to your point, I mean, I think it's time to be creative, especially during these COVID times where we've realized that there's no such thing as certainty, no such thing as stability and stuff like that. And also, I just want to highlight something, Ambitious Vet, that Joel just said, which I've never heard before within the franchising space. And that is plugging in your soft skills, right? Versus your hard skills. And, you know, you got to pay money to sometimes develop your hard skills. That's the education component, what I've learned. But soft skills, you inherently already have those, right? And just plug them into a proven process, a profitable process. May take some time to really get that top line revenue going, but you know, you have the process. It's just leveraging the soft skills. So that's really awesome stuff. Is there anything else you would add to that, Joel?
Well, yeah, I'm actually feeling like this might be a good spot for me to talk about the Veteran Franchise Initiative because of this. But the thing about soft skills, one of the biggest ones from the military that people don't realize, or that people just don't value properly, is leadership. The military pushes leadership on almost every level. It's a prize, and that's a soft skill. And then you get out of the military and you go to apply for some job, And that employer doesn't value leadership. They already have all their leadership filled up. They're looking for somebody at some kind of bottom level that's going to work their way to the top, eventually into leadership. So like it's almost like an identity crisis where you've been trained one way, and then you go into this position that's another, where you're just totally out of your element. But you know what you were saying about veterans, and they get out and they're trying to like prove something or provide for their family and all of that. That's actually one of the reasons why I created the Veteran Franchise Initiative. When military members are in their element, they are in part of a system. They're in a system that has support. They're in a system where they can get guidance if they need it, where they have a defined role. They know what they have to do. When they show up at a new duty station, they have a standard operating procedure they need to follow if they're going to be successful. And they have increasing levels of leadership responsibility. And so one of the things I've been brainstorming this for years, and we've been working on it diligently for months, but we are now at the point where we are rolling out the Veteran Franchise Initiative. And what this is, it's got some different models for veterans, but veterans, mil spouses, and most importantly, transitioning military, we're basically going to be buying veterans franchise businesses and hiring them as managers for 3 years as they go through a certified apprenticeship program, which can use their GI Bill if they want to use it for that.
Huge.
And then at the end of those 3 years, we have 4 different ways that they can end up owning 60% ownership in that business. So that's our goal. Our goal is to, and this is where the reason why I think it's especially valuable for transitioning veterans is through our program, the apprenticeship model, it provides additional management training. It provides extra training in what they're going to be doing. It plugs them into a system, a franchise system, where they have support. They also have the support of our nonprofit, Operation Phantom Support, that we're working with. And it has the support of the franchise system. So they're plugged into another system. They're plugged into something with support. They're given the training that they need. The franchise has a standard operating procedure they need to follow to be successful. And their leadership responsibilities are increasing. They're going from doing whatever they're doing in the military to running a business. And then after 3 years of completing the program, they're owning a majority stake in that business. So that's where, and so if you're coming straight out of the military, that whole mindset transitioning from military to civilian, besides changing the uniform, I don't see a whole lot changing. Like so much, I mean, the culture is going to be different, but a lot of the structural strategic things are going to be in place to ease that transition out and keep them going up and out with their life, and or forward and up, I should say. And that's what I'm really hoping to see. So I've been diligently, the guys at Operation Phantom Support, they're handling all of the vetting the military members for this. I handle investor relations and franchise relations.
Nice. And have you guys got like a date for the first cohort or anything like that where people can go and apply, or where can
you can apply now? No, it's open. Yeah.
Nice.
Oh shoot. The email I believe is map@phantomsupport.org. MAP stands for Management Apprenticeship Program. So map@phantomsupport.org.
And just send it to me.
I'll send
after
it to
this.
Just in case I remembered it wrong.
Exactly.
But yeah, that's going to connect you with Mark Bauer. He's the one that set up our system. And as we roll out, because this can really go anywhere, but as we roll out, we're hoping to in a short amount of time establish our apprenticeship program as a national apprenticeship program, which allows us to pick where we're going to put our headquarters, which allows us to pick where the GI Bill BAH is going to be from. So if we can get a good thing for that, we'll be able to. That's the other thing is if they want to use it, this is going to be GI Bill certified for people to be able to get some extra money for housing allowance while they're.
No, that's awesome, because one of the trends I'm seeing, and I definitely want to make some time to talk about this amazing book that I kind of skimmed through and highlighted some awesome stuff. But this is all incredible stuff that you're passionate about, right? And ambitious. You're like sitting back drinking a whiskey, listening to this. Yeah.
Very passionate person.
Yeah, is one of the trends I'm seeing is this term called upskilling as well. And I think this is a great way to bring this up, and then we can transition. But it sounds like you guys are developing something that will allow people to hack their way through the GI Bill, which, for me, I went and used my GI Bill to go get a psychology degree, right? Which, I've pivoted multiple times in and out of psychology since I've gotten out of that degree, right? But, you're able to give them I guess a certification or some kind of upskilling type thing that can give them a profitable skill set quicker, right? Yeah. Versus formal education where you've got, a baseline industry knowledge of what's going on, but how do we apply it? You're having them be able to leverage GI Bill to gain practical knowledge, gain an upskill like credential to actually go out there and become profitable in their life and feel successful. Am I way off?
Incredible. I mean, yeah. One of the downfalls of our country and the GI Bill is the perspective that everyone needs a degree or an advanced degree. And once you have your advanced degree, you need the advanced degree. But honestly, like, and in my book, so I guess just talk about it. Let me finish the GI Bill. The GI Bill like forces people to go back to school if they want all these amazing benefits.
Yeah.
And so this actually, the apprenticeship program we have has a number of different benefits to it. But one of them is that in the training, it does qualify. And the way the training is set up, and Mark Bauer did an incredible job setting this up. But it's a virtual apprenticeship program, which is unique. It was he had to jump through some hoops to get that approved, but it's virtual. So they don't have to be in Texas where we're located, headquartered right now, to go through it. The second thing is that it's integrated franchisor training with the training programs. They have to do, nice. X amount of 100 hours, or thousands of hours a year. They've incorporated on-the-job training. They can include franchisor training, and then we supplement what's left with our own training programs that we're developing. So I got a big shout out to Mark Bauer. The guy's down in Fort Worth, Texas, and he's killing it for us on that.
It's huge. That's awesome.
We're also set up in the SkillBridge program, and so people that are getting out, the SkillBridge program's tricky, and I don't really. This is going to take forever. I don't want to go through it, but it is possible to use a SkillBridge with that program. We have an MOU with the DoD. So it is possible. We are set up with SkillBridge. It's going to be a little tricky using it while we're getting started up, but once we're in full swing, you'll be able to use it almost anywhere, I think, anywhere that we have presence. Anyway,
good. Yeah. Let's talk about the book now, brother, man. I mean, that was awesome, though. I love just the free, organic flow of a conversation, brother, man. And the cool thing is a lot of what we've already been talking about is different elements of realizing your value, which is really cool. But I do want to kind of
write a book called The Value Equation.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. It's crazy, right? But Ambitious Vet, Joel Stewart here wrote a great book called The Value Equation. He does a great job practically just breaking down how to build human capital, kind of what we've already been talking about, to make more of an economical impact in the marketplace, to have you not only hitting your income goals, but also feel more life satisfaction or more of that occupation prestige. Like, we're already hearing the crazy stats inside the community of, underemployment, undervalued, stuff like that. Well, this book is filling the gap with just that, Ambitious Vet. Are you feeling undervalued in your career? Are you looking for a career pivot, right? This book breaks down how to package yourself up as a value proposition in the world. He does a great job breaking it down in different phases of life: cashier, welder, and consultant. And really how I envisioned it, scrolling through it, brother, is that it's like a self-actualization type equation of like, hey, X, Y, and Z plus this equals, hey, a better life. But why this book and why now?
For me, a lot of it, I'm a very passionate person, and I put focus on what I'm passionate about.
Nice.
I started writing a book before this one that I got about one chapter into, and it was called Defeating Disability Through Entrepreneurship. And I realized as I was writing it that there were so many things that I needed to talk about that I needed to write a whole nother book first that I could use as a basis for writing the next book. So this is almost like a prequel to a book that I started writing that I'm going to finish later.
That's nice.
Yeah. So what I did with the book, and I like helping people. I like helping people break out of career prison, and franchising is one way to do that. But this book is me and my attempt to empower people, no matter their way. I do talk about franchising for like 4 pages, so not very much. But it's to empower people. Look, here's all of the ways that you can break out of career prison, and not just career prison. People that just feel stuck, like their life's not going anywhere. This book was pretty much written for you. What I did with the value equation is I looked at all of the things that feed into your monthly, weekly, yearly take-home income, however you want to define it. And I broke it down into 5 categories. And those five categories are equate to your realized value. So the way I set it up is you have a value. It could be huge, it could be small, but you have a value. That is your potential value. How much of that do you actually get? How much of that do you realize? And that's your take home, basically. And for this, I'm not talking about investments. Investments a whole nother thing. What I'm talking about is you developing your life in a way that makes you increasingly valuable in the marketplace. So this isn't about investment. This isn't any of that. This is about you investing in yourself. And a lot of that investment in yourself is just time. It's just time that you take understanding yourself, understanding your goals, and figuring out how to get where you want to go. I mean, there's not money involved there. It's just you taking the time to really understand yourself. So yeah, there's 6 parts of the value equation. And since my background, I have a degree in mechanical engineering, I did write out a literal equation. So I said, realized value, it's basically your skills, your fit factor, your profit share, your perceived value, and your courage. And those are the 5 things that affect your realized value. So the master variable of this equation is going to be your skills. It's going to be the skills that you've developed through your life and the skills you will develop. I basically look at a resume and say, look at all the things on a resume, everything from, your formal education all the way down to your hobbies, interests, stuff like that. What is it that you've done? What is it? And I try to get people to look at it in different lights, to try to understand what things actually could be skills, and to help you understand where you're at. And then one of the big focuses is the next step you take is going to be the foundation of your whole future. You're on a foundation right now. Your next step is going to be the foundation of the rest of your life. So what do you want that next step to be? What skills do you need that are going to take you forward in life? And continual skill development is something that I focus on hard. I know a lot of people talk about being a lifetime learner, but you can learn things that aren't really helpful. I agree that you should be a lifetime skill developer, that you should be developing skills. And one of the things I really like is the idea of strategic employment. So as much as I love entrepreneurship, employment fills a great place in our country. Not everybody likes the risk of entrepreneurship. So my book isn't focused towards entrepreneurs at all. It's in there. But strategic employment is using a job to get your skill. And this is actually what we were talking about, is we were talking about how everyone's pushing formal schooling, formal education. And I have a lot of formal education. I've got a degree in mechanical engineering. I have an MBA. But when you're looking at economics, you have to look at the cost of something versus or the benefit of doing something versus the benefit you could have gotten doing something else. That's called opportunity cost. So when you're looking at a 4-year degree, I mean, for us people that have the GI Bill, it's a much more lucrative thing with the housing allowance and the tuition getting paid. But for someone just looking at college that doesn't have those benefits, they're looking at a whole pile of money plus 4 years of their life versus 4 years they could be doing something else. And honestly, it's really only fair if they think about that 4 years they could be doing something else, where it's 4 years where they are actively trying to build and engage their life, not 4 years where they play video games and work as a minimum wage worker somewhere. They're actively trying to build their life, build their skills, and move on. So from that perspective, that there's so much you could do in 4 years of self-development, using strategic employment, using finding jobs that are going to teach you things where you get paid and you learn, So there's lots of ways where it's like, what? School really doesn't make a lot of sense for some people. If someone's actually engaged, if they're going to put an equal amount of effort into getting an engineering degree or developing their skills and get paid for it through jobs, it's a big deal. So I focus skill development. And then what you'd mentioned with the cashier, the welder, and the consultant, what I did is for each of these sections, I took somebody and I made an avatar of a person at the beginning of life, in the middle of life, near, closer to retirement. And I said, here's this person's life, and here's how they can apply each of these steps of the value equation. And that the way that I did that is the number one thing I've gotten feedback on that people said this really relates to me. It's because they related to one of those three. They were broad enough that people saw the way that the different parts of the equation were applied, and they really found it helpful. So I'm glad that you brought that up. It was something that I was kind of, I could really have to give people something tangible that they can apply these to. And I won't take as long on the rest of these I did on skills, I promise. So fit factor is how do your skills fit into the job that you're doing? If you're the CEO of a Fortune 500 company and you get a job as a cashier, you may have a huge potential for income, but you're only going to realize a tiny percentage of that working as a cashier. How do you fit your job? And I focus on 4 ways that you can analyze your job or potential job against your skill set and help you identify or help you move forward and try to make sure that you're always maximizing that fit of your skills to your job. And this is something that's really hard to verbalize, like this whole concept of all of your skills. For one, defining your skills is just difficult, but then trying to define those skills in the context of a position is incredibly difficult. But I did my best to nail down practical ways that you can try to make sure that your job is a good fit. And one of the things that I do want to just point out to highlight, because I think it's extra important for people, if they don't read the book, at least they can walk away with this from listening to this, is going for underqualified jobs. And that a lot of people, they're like, what? Why would I try to do that? But here's the thing, if you're being honest about it and you're going to that person with confidence saying, look, I may not be qualified to do this job now, but I'm going to be the best employee you have, and I'm going to be the best person you've ever had in this job. Like, you go with that confidence and you get yourself into that underqualified job. And again, I promise, don't lie. Don't say you're qualified and you're not. Be honest. And you'll probably get turned down a whole bunch. But an underqualified job is where you're going to learn the most, the fastest, and you're going to get paid the most for learning it. So when you get that job, the reason why you're underqualified is you don't have the skills, you don't have the background, and they're likely looking to pay somebody that's much more qualified than you. But if you can land that job, that is like a golden opportunity. And there's a lot of employers out there who would rather take a hard charger that's going to get the job done and just teach them how to do it than somebody who is a know-it-all that steps into the job that's qualified and isn't going to really work hard for them and is going to move on in a year.
Can I add something there?
Yeah,
that's totally shifting up a paradigm, which I think is important to bring up within the veteran community, right? Because we have 230,000 transitioning vets in different phases of their transition. There may be an ambitious vet that's still, or an ambitious active duty Marine listening to this, Army, Navy Cap, whatever, right? Listening to this. We may have someone that's been out for 4 years being like, man, how do I break to the next level? And it's the same paradigm. When we get out, it's like, hey, I just want to get a job. I'm happy with just a job. We're like servant leadership. Hey, just give me a job, give me a paycheck. And this is a complete paradigm shift. And I'm seeing just in your filter of characters throughout the book, this is kind of somewhat the welder, right? Where get in, you just get a flat paycheck, no really room for growth. You got your credentials, you got your trade, but are you really going to live the rest of your life just doing the same thing over and over again with no sense of growth, right?
Yeah, I actually address this rather harshly in my book.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, I say if you're in a job where you're not developing skills, that's the definition of a dead-end job. I don't care how much you're making. If you're not developing skills in what you're doing, that you're never going to grow. You may get, an extra $1 an hour every year or so, but you're stagnant. You're done. The recommendation in my book to that person, I just say they're getting out of the military and they just need a job.
Right.
If that's what they have to do to keep moving forward, that's what they have to do. Mm-hmm. But do not stay there. Like if you're not realizing your full value, if you are not learning something new, if you're not developing skills in that job, get it to get that paycheck and pay your bills, but immediately build skills somewhere else. Start looking for other jobs, other opportunities, other ways to develop skills, and keep going. Don't be happy with that job and just say, all right, I got this. This will handle me for the next 5 years. I mean, that's how you stall out. So yeah, my recommendation is that a lot of people are like, oh, I need this job. You know, that this employer has all this power over me because I need this job. And it's like, okay, yeah, for a couple months, maybe that's what you need. You know, maybe a year, maybe maximum. But the only way that you stay in that job is if you don't do anything to better yourself, to build more skills, to look for other opportunities. Because if you look for them, you're going to find them. You build those skills, you build that skill set, other opportunities come up that you didn't even know existed before. Yeah, I promised Fit Factor would be quick. I guess it wasn't. Yeah,
good stuff, brother. It's good stuff.
Yeah, we'll keep moving. Profit share is analyzing how much of the money you make you get to keep. So this is where I look at business ownership versus employment, and I talk a bit about franchise business ownership, because honestly, the payment paradigm for a franchise is almost in the middle between employee and being a full business owner. So I talk a lot about, different side jobs, different things you could do for part-time employment, the different types of businesses. I get a little bit in the weeds there. But it's a really important thing, because in my mind, because in this section, I actually talk about what is important to an employer. I think in the book, I call them the big four: revenue, cost of goods sold, labor, and other expenses, miscellaneous expenses, basically. And the way that you as an employee or a business owner, but even as an employee, if you focus on those things and say, focusing on any of these areas brings additional value to my employer and raises my potential value in the company. So that's something I talk about a lot in that part. And I think it's really important for people to understand. Perceived value is, in my mind, one of the most important parts of the books. It may not be the biggest part of the value equation, that's skills. But perceived value is something a lot of people really don't understand. And that's how people see you and how that affects how much money you can make. For instance, you may work your butt off at your job, but if your boss doesn't realize you're working your butt off, his perception isn't that, you're not going to get paid the most that you can for your job. And sometimes improving something like that is as simple as communication. You give your employer just like an update. Yeah, I knocked out all these things today. Something you can craft, and this is where I get a kind of amorphous. Maybe your psychology degree can agree with me, but the way that I pitch it is I'm like, everyone is living in their own version of reality. When you choose how others are going to perceive you, you literally craft how you fit into their reality. And
confirmation bias.
Yeah, confirmation. I talk about confirmation bias a lot, just because it's used so much. Oh my gosh, politics and Facebook and confirmation bias is the word. But confirmation bias goes into everything. I mean, if your boss thinks that you're a lemon, you'd have to move the world for that boss to think that you're not a lemon. And honestly, it's better just to get another job and just impress the heck out of that boss right at the beginning and get them thinking that you're the golden goose. Because then when you do screw up, they're going to be like, oh, that's not really him. Whereas if the boss thinks you're a lemon, that time you screw up, they're going to be like, oh, that's typical for him. And when you do good, they might be surprised, but it's not going to last long. The perceived value, but the perception part and how you can craft your perception is incredibly important. And I talk a lot about that in the book. But there's so much more that could be said.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Barely scratch the surface.
I mean, you pretty much gave us a full workshop of how to increase our realized value, man. So I really appreciate it. Ambitious Vet, if you feel like you didn't get everything of the book, I request you go and pick it up on Amazon. Really awesome read. I read through probably 80% of it and just was like, holy cow, like, yes, this is like a proven framework that you can tell Joel himself has kind of grew his value, his personal value over the years.
I've been drinking from an informational fire hose for years.
Hopefully it has some whiskey.
I actually have a workbook. So there is a workbook on Amazon that you can get along with this that goes through, that you can go through with each chapter. And I think it'll really help you apply each chapter to your own life. So
that's huge. That's awesome. So we'll put all those links in the show notes below, Ambitious Vet. But Joel, man, we're coming to a wrap up time, man. But before we let you go, we've got to wrap this entire thing up with a tradition called the 3 golden grenades, right? These are 3 wisdom bombs, brother, that is pretty much, you can either sum up the entire show with some consistent golden grenades that you're spotting out over there on your end, or if they can be 3 brand new ones. But really, these 3 golden grenades are going to be wisdom bombs to enlighten our ambitious vet listeners to break through new levels of success in their life. What would be your 3 golden grenades?
All right. So the first is, just want to recap career prison. Don't let your past define your future. You can't change your past. You can't do anything about it. It is what it is. But your future is not set at all. You can make whatever of the future that you want to make of it. All you have to do is decide that it's going to be different than your past was. So that's my first thing is that applies to more than just your career. Obviously, it can apply to your relationships. It can apply to your habits. Don't let your past define your future in your career or in your personal life. The second thing is focusing on sticking on the future route. There's a thing I do in my workbook for the value equation near the end. And I think, and I'm just going to describe it here. You can either do it through the workbook or just do it on your own. But it's about trying to identify what that path is. I mean, the thought of anybody trying to set up a plan for the future is always kind of hard and amorphous, and it's hard to track down. But here's the pathway my recommendation for it. I want you to think about what is it that you want to be. Imagine yourself on the edge of retirement, like you're right there. What is it that you imagine yourself doing? And then I want you to write it down. And then I want you to think, okay, 5 years before I get there, what do I need to be doing to be on the path to be at that point? And then backtrack it 5 years at a time. I need to do this in order to do that. I need to do this in order to do that. And work yourself back to where you are today. And when you do that, you'll have a path from now to retirement of things, milestones that you need to accomplish in your life in order to get from here to there. Now, instead of going backwards, you go forwards. Start by, in this time, you're going through and identifying the skills you need to hit that next milestone. In 5 years, I need to do this. What skills do I need to get there? 5 years from there, I want the next 5-year milestone is this. What skills do I need to get there? And then you build a skill map for your life. And that is what's going to help you identify that next step that you can take right now, practical. Like, what is my next step? This gets you choosing your next step based on where it is that you want your life to go. And if things change tomorrow, I mean, it took you a couple minutes to put this together, do it again, but this helps you identify what is that next step? What is it, that next skill? What is it, if I'm going to do strategic employment, what is it, that next strategically employed job I need to get the skills that I need to really keep my life moving in the direction that I want it? So that'd be my second one, is take some time and actually do some life planning. That's my method. You can use another method, I'm sure, or just think hard about it.
Yeah.
But writing it down is important. Writing down your goals is very important, and I highly encourage it. My third is going back to perceived value, is you have the power to control how others perceive you. Don't walk around with that chip on your shoulder that says, this is the way I am, you all need to accept me or suck it. That is not going to help you professionally in life. It's not going to help you in your relationships. You control how others perceive you. So if that's how you want others to perceive you, as that person that doesn't care and just wants the whole world to cater to them, then I guess that's the way you're crafting the reality. But if you've never really thought about it, I want you to think about it. Crafting how you fit in others' reality. That is in the scope of your control. Whether it comes to figuring out how you handle first impressions, which is important. I mean, the first impression is incredibly important. Or whether it's getting involved in your community so that your community starts to see you as somebody that cares, or somebody that they can go to when they need help. There's lots of ways practically that you can shape how you fit into the reality of others. And those are probably my top three. And if I'm going to throw in a bonus one, I'm just going to recap what I said in the beginning. Focus on what you can do, not on what you can.
Huge. Ambitious Vet, I mean, this has been Golden Grenade Central, Golden Grenade City, and Golden Grenade Capital, right? This has been a Golden Grenade launcher the entire time. My favorite one was the skill map, mapping out the skills that you need to develop over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 year, your map over the course of your life. That is amazing. I'm going to personally apply that in my life. Joel, man, thanks for joining the show, and thanks for just shifting this kind of like paradigm in the world of just, hey, veterans are broken. They're not progressive. They don't provide any economical value in the world, brother. You are making a global impact, and you're pushing the global economy forward. So thank you for being an ambitious vet.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And thank you for having me on today. I enjoyed our conversation.
The Ambitious Vet is available on all popular podcast platforms. Go to vettrainingcoaching.com to subscribe, rate, and share with fellow vets.
Ambitious Vet, before you go, make sure you go and check out the ebook, 10 Steps to Predicted Success Out of the Uniform, my proven step-by-step guide to creating an impactful and sustainable, fulfilling life out of the uniform. And you'll be able to check out my 10 top life lessons, like start with why, right? You'll never figure out the how until you know the why. One of the core techniques within the ebook is asking the 3-layer deep why. I used to do this exercise with all of my sales reps when I was in the corporate world doing sales training. But the fact of the matter is, Ambitious Vet, if you ask yourself the 3-layer why deep question, you ignite your passion. You figure out what you're doing, and all the failure, the mistakes, all that come after you having that realization don't matter. That's just one step. Go find out the rest of the 9 by either emailing me in the show notes below or going to Amazon and getting it for $10. It's your choice. But until next week, hold the vision and trust the process. Take care.